Game over.
Hello, my trigger happy friends. My name is Stevie Cade, and welcome to what will kick off our Saw review series, where I review every single Saw movie in order because the new Saw trailer, Spiral from the Book of Saw, it released this morning, and you can check out my trailer reaction right now. So in my excitement, I decided to review all the Saw movies for my Thriller Thursday. But before we get started, I would also like to note that I started a Patreon. If you want to support the channel, please go down into this description below, click on my Patreon link, and there are many different levels of options for you to help support the channel, even help give some creative feedback or video ideas, get some behind the scenes look at what I do here, how I do it, my studio, and honestly just bloopers and me just chatting away about random bullshit. Pay me for that. And I'd like to thank my very first Patreon donation that came from Cedric DeDecker, who has followed me on Twitter from pretty much the very beginning. He's been a huge supporter. He shares all of my videos, and he just recently followed me on Vero as well, and he donated to the channel. Cedric, thank you so much for your support, man. You are a treasure to have a part of this Film Trigger family. And also real quick, if you could, hit that subscribe button and the little bell ding thing so you get notified every time I upload a new video. All right, guys, without further ado, let's review Saw. Saw is a story where two victims wake up in a very strange place, only to discover they've been trapped by a sadistic serial killer called Jigsaw. A now classic staple of the horror genre that not only breathed new life into the slasher films, but also changed the way we look at their villains. But this first movie does have its problems. But before we get into those, let's talk about what I like about this movie. And there's a lot I like about this movie, so let's talk about it. New life, new story. A completely new direction for horror films. With your Chuckies, your Freddys, your Jasons, your Myers growing tired and their stories running thin, we get a new villain who is completely different and makes us look at our villain in a completely different way than we ever have before. Which is why the villain, John, is on my list of what I like. He's forcing people to either choose life or death by putting them in extravagant situations. You learn that, in a way, he wants them to live. He wants them to want to live. But at what point does it go too far? Is there a too far? We'll dive into that here in just a little bit. But another thing that makes the villain John unique is that he's weak. He's not very much of a physical threat. His mind is the real threat. And even essentially you, the victims, are also the real threat because they are the ones that choose to either live or die. But if you were to meet John in a one-on-one situation, he's sick, he has cancer. That's a big part of his integrity. He's a man with nothing left to lose. And so he feels that people take life for granted. So he puts them in these situations. They'll either realize if life is worth living for, or they'll just die because they didn't try hard enough or didn't care enough. And I will also say John's reveal at the very end of this movie, where he reveals himself as the one who was playing dead on the floor the entire time of the locker room, one of the best reveals ever. Nobody expected that. When this movie first came out, nobody thought, well, that guy on the floor, he's probably the killer. And if you did think that, then kudos to you, because I definitely didn't. Nobody that I have ever known has ever got that twist ending before. Moving right along with what else I like about this movie is the cinematography. The locker room scenes alone are designed to make you feel uncomfortable and vulnerable. The fluorescent lighting and how the lights seem to strobe on and off, it's all very uncomfortable. The ambient lighting just feels cold and is completely aided by the set designs. Along with the locker room scenes, every other set design seems to be designed to make you feel claustrophobic and closed in. Now, this could be a result of a low budget, because this movie had a very low budget, but it gave you a great illustration of like being lost in a maze or trapped in a room. The gore. This movie does not hold back on the gore. There is blood and guts everywhere. It's very hard to watch, and it's awesome. What's worse than seeing somebody get mutilated? Watching somebody mutilate themselves in an effort to try to live. That's desperate and intense. I mean, we all think that we could survive a situation like this, but we don't really know. Well, yeah, I would do it. I'd totally get past that trap. Would you though? Would you saw off your own foot? bet you would definitely think about it really hard before you did. Which doesn't help that a lot of these traps are on time limits. Ugh, I can only imagine. Hopefully I can only imagine. Hopefully I never had to experience anything that happens in this movie. And the camera work is stellar. This is the world's introduction to James Wan, the now famed Aquaman director and creator of the Conjuring series. He used classic horror elements and then amped them up to 11. The quick cuts, the rapid camera pans and spins, and the high intensity strobe effect, all coupled with rave-like music blaring through your speakers. All these create an effect that just make you uncomfortable to watch this scene. It amps up your anxiety. You become stressed out just watching this person go through these situations, and most of the gore is over the top, but in a good way. Aided by complex contraptions and situations, forcing someone into extreme measures for survival. And they definitely create one hell of a murder montage. Things that I am on the fence about when it comes to this movie. And what actually falls under this category are the traps. Now, I love the traps. I think the traps are executed very well. They're very intelligently designed, but some are just too extravagant and unrealistic in a situation where you're supposed to be able to survive. For example, the situation where the guy had the candle and he was covered in the flammable substance and he had to get the code off the wall to unlock the safe, to get the antidote that was, for the poison running through his veins. That doesn't come down to a will to live. That comes down to knowing where to start on this wall, trying to discover this code. Like, I don't know where you're supposed to start, and there's way too many variables, way too many options. There's no starting point that I knew of. Maybe there was a starting point and I didn't catch it, and if there was, let me know in the comments below. But from what I gathered, he just had to guess where this code started or try to find a repetitive pattern. I don't know. With the time limit that he had, it seemed like, no, this guy is going to die either way. Which is what I think kind of goes against the integrity of what Jigsaw was trying to do in the first place. Another example would be the razor maze. You had that overweight guy and he had to crawl through the maze of razors. It's razors, Again, it doesn't come down to your will to live to make it to the end. It comes down to your ability to survive all these cuts. Is it a live or die by your own choice, or live and die because we kind of set you up to die? Now, another thing I'm on the fence here, and I really debated on this, but the actors / characters. Now, typically I would separate the actors from the characters, but I had a lot of trouble distinguishing if I didn't like what the actors were doing or if that's just how the characters were portrayed. For instance, Danny Glover as Detective David Tapp. His obsession with Dr. Gordon being the killer just doesn't quite make sense for me. That element of this movie seems like an afterthought. Obsession with the case, yeah, I could see that. Obsession with, him not being able to solve it, absolutely, that goes right along with that. But being obsessed with a doctor who's been fully acquitted of all charges based off no other evidence than his pen, I don't buy it. It doesn't make sense for that character to go that route, especially as a detective. And so I would find in the scenes that he's pacing the floor and, becoming obsessive, it didn't translate right for me. I couldn't tell if that was a character arc problem or Danny Glover just not selling it for me in his acting, because it felt a little forced, which is why I think it could have been an afterthought. Leigh Whannell as Adam. Leigh is actually a co-writer of Saw, and this is the first movie he's ever acted in. But I cannot tell if his overacting is a result of inexperience or if it's a deliberate character choice. Like, for example, the cigarette scene when he's supposed to pretend like he's choking out. It's kind of a funny situation. As a matter of fact, when I was watching this for the review, I was watching it with a friend and she chuckled at it because it's goofy. And it plays off well, but I can't tell if that was done on purpose or not. I want to think it is, but there's quite a few other moments when I feel like he's overacting. Like when he pulls the bag out of the toilet, and he's like, maybe I should have checked there first. It just doesn't work for me, and I can't tell if that was deliberate or not. Probably not, but it plays off okay enough to where I would believe them if they told me it was. And then Cary Elwes as Dr. Gordon. Same thing as Leigh. Is his overacting on purpose or not? This man has been in many movies, has played many great other characters, but I've never known him to be a superior, extinguished actor. He's always kind of played over-dramatic roles, like Robin Hood, Men in Tights, Princess Bride, Liar Liar. And seeing him in this different type of role, I can still see that same overacting shining through.
You're gonna be all right. Just I have to go and get help. Don't leave me. No.
But in a way, it works. In a way, it almost makes them seem even more real. I really have a hard time distinguishing between if these choices were deliberate or not. Now, I do love this movie, but there are some things that I don't like. Although the overall storytelling and writing is smart and innovative, there is some really bad dialogue that gives us lazy plot devices and inconsistencies. And essentially, this kind of just wraps some things that I was on the fence about can be wrapped up into this, but what I was on the fence about was more forgivable than these things that I'm talking about here. Like the two-way mirror discovery, and Leigh gives that terrible dialogue, "I'll cut you, man, I'll cut you." And then he looks at the glass, "Oh, it's a two-way mirror." This is what I'm talking about. Bad dialogue that gives us a plot device to forward the story a little bit more. Very quickly written in. It doesn't seem organic, you know? Am I crazy? Am I alone here? Another example, when the detectives go into John's hideout and they discover this guy, you know, trapped in a chair. They can't figure out how to get him out, and they hear Jigsaw coming. So they cover the guy back up and then hide. Okay, all right, I can buy that if there was a payoff for it. But there wasn't. They just waited till John got closer and then came out, "Oh, hey, freeze." Like, I don't know, there was no element of surprise. It was just like, they just waited for him to get up there so they could tell him that they were there. It just seemed like a plot device to get them into a chasing scene. Well, we're here, cover him back up. Okay, let's hide. Okay, we're still here though. Oh, he's running now. You know, I don't know. John's helper, Zepp, the guy that we think might be the killer throughout the movie, but come to find out he's just playing one of John's games, you know, when they discover that tape at the end. And the tape says, "Will you kill a mother and child to save yourself?" Okay, so yeah, he's got him in a situation where he has to choose to live or die by doing something he doesn't want to do. But my issue is with Gordon's wife and child. What did they do? I feel like Jigsaw's integrity here is to teach people a lesson. And there's no lesson for them. That's just straight up murder. He's just killing innocent people. And goes against the narrative that Jigsaw is very known to have at this point in the movie. And I do have something petty to pick out, again, about Adam, you know, the photographer that was trapped in the room. If you're following somebody, you're being paid to follow somebody without them knowing. Why would you use a flash? Especially in a parking garage? Why would you use a flash? Always annoyed that he would use a flash when trying to be secretive. Overall though, this movie is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It delivers on everything that I've come to know and love about horror movies. But then it raises the bar for future horror franchises to strive for. This is a top shelf slasher with pretty forgivable issues. And that's why I'm giving this movie an A-.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
That was great!
Tell me what your thoughts are about this movie in the comments below. Did you like it as much as I did? Do you think I was being a little too hard on my review? Even though I did give it an A-, I kind of picked it apart quite a bit. Let me know in the comments below. Also, be sure to check out some more of my videos right here. And as always, stay trigger happy, my friends. Peace.